Good day, everyone. I am Marimi Cortez and I am your speaker for the topic Task for Coping with the Challenges of Intercultural Communication. One of the most dream place to go. One of the most beautiful and outstanding country around the world. It is a place where generation of today idolizes much about the entertainment and mostly the artists of dramas and in the music industry. It is hard to understand their language, but then, as you go deeper learning about what does their dramas and music portrays, they can really change and touch the life of every fan. Annyeonghaseyo! South Korea, a dream place destination of many, and a place where fashion, music, and entertainment rules around the world. And before going to that dream place destination, come, learn with me. Let's take a quick tour of the way they communicate, their do's and don'ts, and the things to remember before going to South Korea. Come with me, mighty eagles, and let's learn about South Korea for us to be ready when we get to reach that dream place destination. Communication modes, practices, and styles in South Korea. First, we will go for the communication. And in communication in South Korea has two phases, the verbal and non-verbal communication. Verbal communication includes indirect communication. The South Korean communication pattern is generally indirect and quite verbose. They tend to rely less on words and are attentive to the speaker's posture, expression, and tone of voice to draw meaning. Speech can be ambiguous as they often understate their point. The purpose of this is to maintain harmony throughout the conversation and prevent the loss of face on their end of exchange. The best way of navigating this rhetoric to find the underlying meaning is to check for clarification several times through open-ended questions. Next is refusals. A South Korean's preoccupation with saving face and politeness means that they will seldom give a flat no or negative response, even when they don't agree with you. Therefore, focus on hints of hesitation, listening to what they say, but also paying attention to what their subtlety imply. Next is their speech style. While they may be indirect in their communication style, South Koreans generally speak quiet firmly and use less gestures and facial expressions. This can make them across as stern. Expect them to give serious replies and retorts. They also tend to ask questions in order to discern their status in comparison to the person they are talking to. This can catch people off guard. For example, how much do you earn? Or how old are you? Next is silence. Silence is an important and purposeful tool used in Asian communication. Pausing before giving a response indicates that someone has applied appropriate thought and consideration to the question. It reflects politeness and respect. Next is laughter. Laughter is sometimes used in awkward situations. A Korean may laugh when they feel uncomfortable and not necessarily because what was said was genuinely funny. Next is the nonverbal communication. Physical contact. Koreans are generally not very physical affectionate with one another. However, male friends may touch one another more than Western men, and girls may walk hand in hand. Personal space. Personal space is not guarded very closely in Korea. People generally expect to come into contact with strangers on busy streets and tend not to worry or apologize when personal space is invaded. Pointing. People do not point with their index finger, but rather than with the entire hands. Eye contact. During a discussion, a friendly discussion or conversation, make full eye contact with the person you are talking to. Avoid direct eye contact if you are scolded by someone older or higher status than you. Some Koreans may also avoid eye contact with their superiors on a regular basis. Next is hands. Use two hands or straight right hand alone to offer or receive something. Use two hands or right hand alone. We can see in Korean dramas that when they receive something from their superiors, they use both hands and added a big and wide smile. Next is gestures. It is considered rude to make a fist with your hand while placing a thumb between the middle and index finger. This is not allowed in South Korean culture. Next is expressions. Koreans tend to come across as quite straight face in conversation. However, their facial expressions can immediately expose when they are angry or in disagreement. Next is smiling. As well as an expression of glee and humor, smiling can indicate that one is feeling ashamed or embarrassed in Korean culture. For example, a Korean may smile when they make mistakes. Additional is sneezing. Sneezing is considered rude in South Korea. It is best practice to excuse yourself from the room if you have to. Next is greetings. Use person's formal title. For example, Mr., Miss, Doctor, Engineer, when addressing them for the first time, and continue to do so until they signal otherwise. The most common way to greet in South Korea is a bow. As you can see in the picture, they are bowing. The casual bow is a deep head with eyes closed, sometimes accompanied by a slight bend from the waist. As you can see, the ladies in the picture that they slightly bow with their eyes closed. This type of greeting is used when informally greeting someone or walking past someone of a higher status. We can see in South Korean dramas or in the music industry that when someone or the artist pass by another artist, they slightly bow and they smile. Business interactions require a deeper bow, where the torso bends from the waist by about 30 degrees. The deepest bow, most polite bow, expresses sincerest gratitude or apology. One bends from their torso to around 45 degrees or at such an angle from which the head would have to stretch up to look into the face of other person. The head is kept lowered in this greeting. Handshakes are also used to greet in South Korea. To show great respect during this greeting, one may support the wrists of their right hand with their left hand. Women may also greet one another by reaching out both hands to touch and clasp the other woman's hands. A person in position of service may put their hands together in front of their chest, when they're greeting or accepting something as an expression of gratitude. Let's go for the do's in South Korea. Laugh with Koreans wherever possible as they enjoy sharing humor. Make love with them. Make an effort to compliment what you like about Korea. This may help in giving you face. Next, be aware of how you fit in the social hierarchy that Koreans observe. Discern who is superior to you based on age, position, and family name, and show respect to each person as necessary. If you do not adhere to these expectations and fail to give a Korean the respect they are due, you may lose face in their eyes. You may even find that they wish avoid you after. Expect a Korean to be modest and subtly deny any compliments you give them. Be sensitive to the hardships of South Koreans have endured and sympathize about the situations in North Korea. Don'ts. Avoid drawing parallels between the Korean culture or language to Japan or any other culture or country. Korean should be acknowledged for this distinctiveness. Korea should be acknowledged for its distinctiveness. Korea should be acknowledged for its distinctiveness and difference from other East Asian cultures. Avoid exhibiting anger or distress in heated displays or outbursts of emotion. Doing so may cause you lose face or reputation. Do not underestimate their knowledge and intelligence, as the Korean population is very culturally educated and politically aware. Additional for the practices of South Korean. Remove your hat when you're indoors. It is the best practice to remove your shoes before entering a Korean home. Koreans are reasonably punctual and usually prompt. They tend to try and make the most of the time they have. In certain settings, this can come across as impatient. In their eating practices, it is considered inappropriate for adults to eat while walking. So, street food is often eaten on the spot where it is both. Food should not be eaten with one's finger. Spoons are used to eat soup, but chopsticks are used for everything else. Do not blow your nose at the dinner table. The eldest person should be served first. Everyone seated should then wait for them to begin eating before doing so. Drinking practices. South Korea has a large drinking culture. Drinking can give status, proving one's stamina. If you do not want to participate in drinking, try to give a sincere reason such as medical or religious grounds. Do not make an excuse that could be interpreted as the morals of those drinking. Avoid emptying your glass if you've had enough to drink. Fill others' glasses before your own. In a formal setting, do not fill your own drink and instead wait for someone else to return the gesture and fill yours. Thank you for listening, Mighty Eagles. I hope I have helped you in learning about the South Korean culture and communication style. And before we end, I would love to remind you about what Father Eagle said. Study, 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 and pray. And someday, we will reach those dream place, destination of ours, and we will reach and pursue our dreams. Thank you! 감사합니다.